Hello, and this is another News for You live stream brought to you by Freedom Media WA. Last week has been a big week in our federal parliament, and I'm not talking about the circus that is question time. You'd think Anthony Albanese would want to answer questions himself. However, unless it's about the voice to Parliament, Albo has spent the past week handing over to Acting Prime Minister Richard Marles to take the heat. And if you think that's an exaggeration, let's have a look at this.
And I give the call to the Acting Prime Minister.
Acting Prime Minister.
The 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 Acting Prime Minister. The Acting Prime Minister. Acting Prime Minister. I'll call the Acting Prime Minister.
To the Acting Prime Minister.
I'll call the Acting Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I ask that further questions be placed on the notice paper.
And all the while, Albo has been doing the sums in his head as to how much he can spend promoting the yes vote without actually making it look like he's funding the yes campaign. And also he's been thinking about what Singaporean dish he's going to be having on yet again another overseas junket. In this stream, I'm going to bring you a different look where the real work is done, and that's in the Senate committee hearings, in particular, hearings into community affairs, a space that mainstream media rarely report on. Why? Well, that's because mainstream media journalists need to assess the newsworthiness and the relevance of the proceedings to determine the level of coverage that would warrant airing maximum viewers so that they can sell their ad breaks at premium dollars. Therefore, what you're about to see, which is actually groundbreaking information or news, doesn't get aired except for some little tidbits on the ABC. When you have a panel of senators for the likes of Senators Gerard Rennick, Alex Antic, Matt Canavan, Malcolm Roberts and Ralph Babbitt sitting on one side, while non-elected government officials occupy the other, it really is groundbreaking information. Watching the senators that I've just mentioned grilling government officials on their policies and the decisions that they made that impacted on the lives of Australians during the pandemic over the past 3 years. Let's take a look at one issue, and that is Senator Matt Canavan questioning Professor Brendan Murphy about the jab mandates, with a brief look at Brendan Murphy's past media press conferences where he was spruiking AstraZeneca, and more recently, his near silence on AZ's withdrawal. Yet he continues to deny that that particular shot causes injuries.
We've heard tonight again that the COVID vaccines are safe and effective. We heard that, of course, about the AstraZeneca vaccine, but less than 2 months ago that was pulled. How did the TGA get it so wrong about AstraZeneca?
Our first AstraZeneca vaccination today. We've got 300,000 doses of AstraZeneca from international sources. That is being rolled out now and will start up in every state next week. But the really exciting thing is that in the week beginning the 22nd of March, we'll start to release the onshore supply of AstraZeneca vaccine, 1 million doses plus a week, which gives us the capacity to really ramp up and broadly vaccinate our population as quickly as possible. But we'll get a lot more of the AstraZeneca vaccine. That's the one I'm going to have, and I'm really looking forward to it.
I think that the TGA, like every regulator in the world, the challenge with the AstraZeneca vaccine is you needed very large numbers. In the UK, they had vaccinated 20 million people before they realised that this side effect was happening.
But this syndrome, after all of the work we've done with the UK and Europe, does seem to be a real syndrome, and we now feel that at an abundance of caution, given that this syndrome seems to occur mainly in younger people.
Similarly, myocarditis was really appreciated late in the course of the mRNA vaccines.
Just, I had a question around the vaccine mandates responses. Professor Murphy, I met a young girl in a small country town the other week. Her and her husband have lost their jobs as radiologists. Their company they work for, I'm happy to name, MyMed, still imposes a vaccine mandate. A small country town is denied the access to 2 radiologists, exacerbating severe workforce shortages. And of course, this particular couple struggle to stay in their home. I take from your comments you'd think that mandates like IMED's are unreasonable at this stage.
I think at this stage in the pandemic there's little justification for vaccine mandates. We have a highly vaccinated population. If people are foolish enough to choose not to be vaccinated.
Hang on. When Brendan Murphy says if people are foolish enough to get jabbed without this, with this jab, if nothing else, given that jab's primary functions, if it's to be called a vaccination, is to stop people getting the disease. Brendan Murphy, like mainstream media, certainly won't be referring to an answer that a major jab company gave a member of the European Parliament, and that's Rob Roos, about 7 months ago on this issue. Let's have a look.
And I will speak in English so there are no misunderstandings. Was the Pfizer COVID vaccine tested on stopping the transmission of the virus before it entered the market? Thank you very much.
Regarding the question around, did we know about stopping immunisation before it's entered the market? No. We had to really move at the speed of science to really understand what is taking place in the market.
This is scandalous. Millions of people worldwide felt forced to get vaccinated because of the myth that you do it for others. Now this turned out to be a cheap lie. This should be exposed. Please share this video.
So with that in mind, let's get back to a little bit more from last week's Senate committee hearing, Brendan Murphy versus Senator Matt Canavan.
Then I'm not sure that mandates are going to achieve much. I think in some healthcare settings early on, particularly when the risk of transmission was high, and the vaccines did in the early phase prevent transmission.
Did we know about stopping immunisation before it's entered the market? No.
I think they're proportionate, but personally, and I'm not speaking for the government, I'm speaking as a clinician, that I think that the proportionality of vaccine mandates is no longer justified.
I appreciate that.
Senator Roberts keeps asserting that there's new evidence that the vaccines are not safe or effective. We completely refute that suggestion.
I just want to make a point, given I was ridiculed for my stance about this very early on. My call for AstraZeneca to be paused in March 2020. I was ridiculed in this committee by Labor senators. Wasn't given much truck by you guys. And I just, the biggest issue here is the false sense of certainty that you and other health officials put out about these drugs. All drugs have side effects, but through this pandemic, these glib terms like safe and effective do great harm to the trust in health officials in the community because they're sometimes not right. And when you're exposed as not being right, like you have been on AstraZeneca, it makes it very, very hard for people to trust you in the future.
It does.
So as you've just seen, mainstream media, they can't make a buck showing you government committee Senate hearings like that, where you can see government officials clearly being evasive and dodging direct answers to direct questions, despite the gravity of fact-finding questions by Senator Matt Canavan in that instance. And they absolutely should be, and that's mainstream media journalists, because they have a duty to investigate and report on matters that really are of this high value in the public interest. After all, Senate committee hearings underscore the importance of robust oversight and place a vital role in exposing potential government wrongdoings. Thank you to those that have commented. Keep the comments coming, and if you feel the content in this stream is worthy of more attention, then you can play a part by liking this, but that's not enough. Share this stream, as mainstream media will not bring you these insights. I'm Lindsay from Freedom Media, WA. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Brought to you by Freedom Media WA, where journalism should never be a government narrative.